10 minutes or we're dead. The voice cracked across the comm, tight and dry, yet calm. Mara Jensen's eyes cut through the dim interior of the command module, tracing the jagged horizon outside. Sparks of alien artillery flickered like fireflies in the distance, casting long, distorted shadows across the scarred metallic floor. She didn't flinch. Humans never flinched, not when the stakes were measured in seconds. "Then we better make those 10 minutes count," replied Elias Kane, his grin sharp and dangerous, eyes glinting with intelligence and challenge. He leaned against the console, tapping a sequence into the holographic display. Lights danced across his face, illuminating lines of tension he refused to admit. The cadets weren't just soldiers. They were the last hope, the human edge in a war that had dragged 10 years into the blackest corners of the galaxy. 10 years of endless grinding battles against the Lyrithians, a species built of shadow and steel, whose silence was as deadly as their weapons. And now, the final strike, a 1-hour operation that could end everything. Mara inhaled slowly, feeling the thrum of anticipation in her chest. She glanced at the other cadets, a patchwork team forged from Earth's most daring, smartest young minds. Each carried the same defiant glimmer. Humans didn't surrender. Humans adapted. Humans dominated, even when the odds were impossible. "Coordinates locked," said Juno, voice steady but with a tremor Mara recognized all too well, the tremor of fear masquerading as calm. "But the Lyrithians have shifted their defenses. Their response patterns are different, faster, smarter." Elias laughed, sharp and echoing. "Good, means they notice us. Means they care. Nothing human does goes unnoticed for long, Juno. And we've been unnoticed for too long." The comm buzzed again. "Command to team, warning. Temporal destabilizer activating in T-minus 20 minutes. Your window is shrinking. Time. Always time." Mara clenched her jaw, feeling her pulse accelerate. The temporal destabilizer wasn't just a weapon. It was a cage. A device meant to slow the universe itself, leaving soldiers trapped in moments of agony, forced to relive battles that had long ended. 10 years could stretch into decades. Their window, 60 minutes, was all they had. "Remember," Mara whispered more to herself than anyone else, "humans are lightning. We strike, we adapt, we survive, and we finish." The cadets moved as one, fluid and sharp. Their ship, the Aegis Vanguard, cut through the void like a blade, engines singing in harmony with the hum of the destabilizer. Outside, the Lyrithian fleets shimmered, dark shapes twisting in the gravity well. They were everywhere, silent, observing, anticipating, but the humans didn't wait. They never did. The first shots rang out, metallic chimes of fire echoing across the black void. Mara's heart thudded, but her mind calculated, anticipating movements feeding on adrenaline. She felt the thrill that only humans could feel in the presence of annihilation, fear tempered with audacity. Shield levels dropping. Juno shouted, but there was no panic. Only sharp, precise commands, human intuition outpacing machines and aliens alike. Elias's fingers danced over the console. "Give them hell," he said simply. His grin widened as a Lyrithian cruiser veered too close. Mara fired the pulse cannon. Light tore through shadow. The cruiser disintegrated silently, debris spiraling in zero gravity. For a moment, silence. Then the comm crackled. "Unknown entity approaching. Sensors cannot classify." Mara's stomach twisted. Unknown. Unseen. Something the Lyrithians themselves feared. "Humans," Elias muttered, eyes narrowing. "They always underestimate us. Every time. And that's why we win." Mara felt a shiver, but not of fear. Anticipation. The universe had always underestimated humanity. That would not happen today. The Aegis Vanguard plunged further into enemy lines, shields flashing, engines screaming. In the darkness, shadows moved, shapes twisting impossibly fast. The temporal destabilizer ticked down. 5 minutes, Juno said, voice clipped. The cadets didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their minds worked in silent synchrony. 10 years of war compressed into a single hour of brilliance. Human brilliance, and then something shifted. A glimmer of movement, too fast to see, too deliberate to ignore. Mara knew instinctively that the war wasn't just about firepower anymore. It was about thought, cunning, and the unrelenting spirit that made humans unpredictable. The question hung in the void. Could 10 human cadets, in a single hour, end a decade-long war? Mara didn't hesitate. Humans never hesitated. Then let's finish it, she whispered. The darkness outside waited. The clock ticked, and the war was about to die. Do you ever wonder, Juno murmured, her hands trembling over the controls, if we're too small for this? Elias glanced at her, one eyebrow raised, the grin never quite leaving his face. Too small? Juno, we're the reason they even fear us. Size doesn't matter in this war. Wit does. Heart does. Chaos. Chaos. The word echoed like a drumbeat in Mara's mind as the Aegis Vanguard carved its path through enemy space. Outside, Larithian vessels pulsed and twisted, forming shifting patterns like living shadows. Their movements weren't random. They were anticipatory, almost intelligent in ways that made Mara's stomach knot. The cadets had faced horrors before, but nothing like this. Multiple signatures, Mara said, voice clipped, scanning the holographic display. Unknown entities. Not just ships, something else. Something else? Juno asked, unease creeping in. Her fingers hovered over the interface, reluctant to commit. Exactly, Mara said. Her tone sharpened. We don't have time to wait for classification. We react, we adapt, we dominate. That's human strategy, Elias smirked. And if they outthink us? Mara didn't answer. She never did. Humans survive by acting, not debating. The first strike came unexpectedly. A pulse of energy so precise it sliced through space-time around them, bending reality in ways that made Mara's stomach drop. For a fraction of a second, the bridge shimmered, her reflection fracturing across the holo displays. Shields! Juno shouted. Sparks flew, screens flickered, and Mara felt the familiar adrenaline surge. Every fiber of her being screamed, but she remained steady. Humans never froze under pressure. They learned, adapted, and dominated. Elias's voice cut through the chaos, teasing and dangerous. Looks like they're learning too. Interesting. Maybe they finally figured out we're not like the others. Not like the others, Mara repeated silently. Not just humans. Something uniquely human. Audacity, instinct, and the stubborn refusal to surrender, even in the face of annihilation. The Aegis Vanguard twisted through the battlefield, dodging pulses of unknown energy. Each strike forced them into tighter formations, closer to the enemy core. The closer they got, the more Juno's unease grew. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of failing. And failure in this war meant a collapse that no human could survive. A shadow passed over the hull, darker than the void itself, and Mara felt a shiver that was not entirely fear. Recognition. The Lyrithians' unknown entities were no mere vessels. They were predators, but something more. Something almost alive. Elias's grin faded as he saw it. They're thinking. Thinking, Mara repeated, feeling the weight of the word settle in her chest. The Lyrithians weren't just machines, not just soldiers. They were evolving strategies. And now somehow they had a mind. Do you feel that? Juno's voice trembled. It's like it knows what we're going to do before we do it. Mara's jaw tightened. She hated that feeling. Humans thrived in uncertainty, but this was different. This was a predator anticipating every move. A mirror that reflected their own tactics back at them, sharpened and lethal. And yet, even in that realization, a spark of exhilaration coursed through Mara. Humans never cowered at impossible odds. Humans never submitted to inevitability. Humans dominated even when survival seemed mathematically absurd. The clock ticked, 52 minutes left. Look, Elias said, pointing at a shifting cluster of shadows. They're forming a pattern. Maybe a trap. Mara narrowed her eyes. Or maybe it's an invitation. Juno froze. An invitation? Yes, Mara said, calm but resolute. They're daring us to strike. And humans never back down from a dare. A sudden pulse of energy flared from the unknown entities, enveloping the Aegis Vanguard. Time itself seemed to slow. The world became fluid, memories and possibilities overlapping. Mara felt every second stretch, the weight of 10 years pressing into a single heartbeat. She knew then, this war had never been about weapons. It had always been about minds. Human minds against something utterly alien. And for the first time she felt the thrill of true challenge, raw and unyielding. Elias leaned close, voice low, almost reverent. You feel it too, don't you, the rush? This is what humans were born for. Mara nodded. And if we survive this hour, we won't just end the war. We'll redefine what humans are capable of. A pulse hit again, faster, sharper, slicing through their shields. Lights flickered, alarms blared. Yet in the chaos, a smile touched Mara's lips. Fear was inevitable. Doubt was optional. Humans chose courage. Humans chose audacity. The cadets were no longer just soldiers. They were the storm, the edge of humanity cutting through 10 years of darkness. And the unknown entities, for all their intelligence, had yet to understand one immutable truth. Humans didn't follow rules. Humans didn't wait for permission. Humans dominated because they were unpredictable. The hour wasn't over. But Mara felt it in her bones. The war was bending toward them. The final confrontation was close, inevitable, and terrifying. The hour wasn't over. But Mara felt it in her bones. The war was bending toward them. The final confrontation was close, inevitable, and terrifying. And when it came, humanity would strike. "Brace yourselves," Mara said, her voice low, a razor cutting through the chaos of the bridge. "They're not just ships. They're predators, and we're walking into the den." The Aegis Vanguard quivered under the pressure of the unknown entities, shadows folding and twisting around them like living smoke. The cadets felt it, all of them, an awareness creeping into their minds, probing, analyzing, anticipating. Yet the humans didn't falter. That wasn't their way. Elias's fingers danced across the console, manipulating systems with the precision of an artist. Time to show them why humans think differently. Juno swallowed hard. "You mean, fight smarter?" Elias smirked, teeth flashing. "No, we fight unexpectedly. Smarts, that's baseline. We are chaos wrapped in intelligence." Mara felt the surge of adrenaline as the first of the entities lunged, moving faster than any human eye could follow. Light bent around it. Reality seemed to ripple in its wake. Yet she didn't panic. Humans were made for impossible odds. "Targeting sequences?" she asked, voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "Already calculating," Juno replied. Her hands flew across the interface, updating shields, weapons, predictive trajectories. Even as fear clawed at her, the human instinct to adapt took over. Elias leaned close, whispering into her ear, "Watch. Humans don't just react. We anticipate. We improvise. We dominate. The first strike hit." A tendril of shadow collided with the Aegis Vanguard, tearing through the outer hull with a soundless force that made Mara's teeth grind. The ship shuddered violently, throwing them against the consoles. Sparks rained down like miniature lightning storms, but the humans didn't scream. They didn't freeze. They smiled. Mara calculated instantly, issuing commands with a rhythm that left no room for hesitation. Shields reconfigured, pulse cannons fired. Light exploded in the void, shattering the alien tendrils, but the entities twisted, morphing, evolving. They were adapting fast, Juno gasped. "They're learning. Every strike we make, they counter." Elias's grin widened. "Good. That's exactly what we want. Because humans learn faster." Mara's mind raced, a web of possibilities forming in seconds. The Larithians had spent 10 years grinding humanity down, but they had never encountered this level of rapid adaptation, of sheer audacity. Humans didn't wait for openings, they created them. "Engage the Vortex Protocol," Mara ordered. "Now." The cadets moved as one, executing maneuvers designed to bend not just space but perception. Light twisted, reality shimmered, and for a moment the entities recoiled, unprepared for human unpredictability. Mara felt the thrill of control in the midst of chaos, the raw, unyielding satisfaction of bending the impossible to human will. "Shield integrity holding," she called, eyes scanning every flicker of light. "Just barely," Juno said, sweat streaking her face. "But we're making them hesitate." Elias's grin sharpened. "Exactly. And hesitation is fatal in war." Another pulse hit, tearing through the hull closer to the engine core. The Aegis Vanguard lurched violently, alarms screaming like banshees. The cadets were thrown to the floor, but they scrambled back instantly. Unbroken, undeterred. Fear existed only to be mastered. Mara's gaze locked on the largest shadow, its tendrils thrashing with a mind of their own. This one was different, older, cunning, almost sentient. Its form shifted constantly, impossible to categorize, yet Mara saw through the chaos. "You're too slow," she muttered almost to herself. Humans move faster than fear. She engaged the targeting matrix personally, each calculation firing like a mental cannon. Pulse after pulse hit the entity, each strike forcing it to adapt, to twist, to counter, and each time humans adapted faster. They didn't just fight, they taught, misled, and dominated simultaneously. Elias laughed, a sharp, triumphant sound. Look at that. 10 years of war reduced to one lesson. Humans improvise. Humans dominate. Humans survive. The unknown entity shrieked, not with sound, but with the shiver of reality itself, its form tearing at the edges of space. Mara's pulse raced, not with fear but exhilaration. The impossible was bending. The predator was faltering. Juno whispered, almost in awe. We're breaking it. Mara's eyes narrowed. No, we're not breaking it. We're ending it. Humans don't destroy blindly. We strike precisely, smartly, and with purpose. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us unstoppable. The Aegis Vanguard surged forward, engines screaming like wild horses. The unknown entities twisted, evolved, counterattacked. But humanity's precision and unpredictability proved too fast. Too clever. The battle hung in fragile balance, the void between human and alien trembling with possibility. The hour was nearly half gone, but Mara felt it in her bones. This confrontation was just the beginning. One decisive move could collapse 10 years of war in moments. One human decision could redefine the galaxy. And Mara, Elias, and Juno, the cadets, were ready, because humans never waited for the universe to bend to them. Humans bent it themselves, and the universe was about to learn exactly why. Mara's breath came in controlled bursts, each inhale a promise of precision, each exhale a silent challenge to the void around them. The Aegis Vanguard cut through the alien formations, a streak of defiance against the twisting darkness. Sensors picking up something, Juno said, voice tight. Structures massive, artificial, but alive. Elias leaned over her shoulder, scanning the readings. Alive, thinking, and probably laughing at our faces. Typical. Mara's eyes narrowed. Not laughing. Testing. Always testing. The shadows shifted, coalescing into forms that defied logic, impossibly tall, angular constructs pulsating with energy. The cadets realized almost simultaneously that these were the brains of the Lyrithian war machine. Not mere vessels, not mere soldiers, but command entities, and they were aware, fully aware of the humans moving among them. Coordinates for breach? Mara asked. Direct entry, Juno replied, hesitating. But the energy patterns, they're unstable, could collapse space-time if miscalculated. Elias grinned. Perfect. That's exactly the kind of mess humans thrive in. Calculated chaos. You feel that, Mara? That's the sweet spot. Mara clenched her jaw, the adrenaline sharpening her senses. Humans had thrived in chaos since time immemorial. Every battle, every survival, every triumph had come from turning impossible odds into opportunity. The Aegis Vanguard plunged into the heart of the Lyrithian stronghold. Energy rippled around them, warping the stars themselves. Mara's stomach twisted as the hull shivered under unseen forces, yet her mind was razor-sharp. Fear existed only to be converted into clarity. Shields holding at 60%, Juno reported. If we take another strike, we're dead? Mara finished for her. She shrugged off the thought. Humans didn't dwell on death. They mastered it, danced with it, and often left it behind. The interior of the Lyrithian core revealed the shocking truth. The war wasn't just fought with machines and weapons. It had been orchestrated by a network of consciousnesses, something beyond alien intelligence. The entities weren't merely reactive. They were predictive, analyzing centuries of human behavior and war strategies. Elias's grin faded, replaced by awe. They've been learning from us this whole time. Not just learning, Mara said. Her voice was calm but deadly serious. They've been copying, anticipating our every move before we even thought of it. And now we're here, in their nest. Juno's hand hovered over the controls. How do we strike them without triggering? Everything. Mara finished again. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. The unknown entities had designed a fortress of logic and instinct, a trap built to crush even the cleverest minds. But humans weren't clever, they were audacious. They didn't calculate only possibilities. They created them. Elias tapped the interface, setting a course for the central nexus. Then we give them something they didn't anticipate. Humanity. Raw, unpredictable, relentless. The closer they moved, the more the stronghold reacted. Energy waves rippled outward, bending time and space around the ship. The cadets felt their minds stretch. memories flickering in loops, seconds stretching into years. But Mara, always Mara, didn't falter. "Remember," she whispered to the team, "humans aren't machines. We feel, we think, we decide. And that's our edge." The Nexus loomed ahead, a pulsating core of energy and intelligence. Tendrils of data, of thought, of pure computation, reached toward them, probing, testing, seeking weakness. The hour left in the operation dwindled rapidly. 30 minutes, Juno said, almost too quietly to hear. Elias's eyes gleamed with reckless excitement. Half the hour gone and we're just getting started. Humans love a good climax. Mara felt it. The weight of 10 years of war condensed into a single moment. The Larithians, with all their predictive power, hadn't accounted for human improvisation under ultimate pressure. Humans didn't just react, they forced outcomes. "Prepare for breach," Mara ordered. "We go in fast, precise, decisive. One mistake and 10 years of war could continue another decade. One perfect strike and it ends in an hour." The Aegis Vanguard surged forward. Tendrils of the Nexus lashed, each strike threatening to fracture their hull, twist space, and snuff out life instantly. Yet the cadets moved as one, synchronized in thought and instinct. Every pulse of energy, every flicker of light, every tremor in the void was anticipated, met, and overcome. Mara felt it then. A strange resonance, almost like recognition. The Nexus didn't just perceive them, it acknowledged them. And in that acknowledgement, Mara knew humanity's audacity had pierced through 10 years of meticulous preparation. "Humans," Elias muttered, almost in reverence. "They've never faced humans like us," Juno whispered, eyes wide. "And now, we get to show them why." Mara nodded. Fear, anticipation, and exhilaration collided in a single heartbeat. The hour was slipping away, the Nexus awaited. And the humans, small, defiant, brilliant, were about to strike in a way no logic, no prediction, no intelligence could have foreseen, because humans didn't just fight. Humans changed the rules of war, and in the heart of the Lyrithian stronghold the final lesson was about to be written. The Aegis Vanguard shuddered violently as it entered the Nexus chamber. Waves of thought and energy washed over the ship, distorting perception. Mara felt every pulse of the Lyrithian consciousness in her mind, probing, twisting, testing. It was a presence that should have overwhelmed them. But humans never submitted to what they didn't understand. "Brace for cognitive assault," Juno warned, voice tight, eyes wide. The cadets could feel it now. A force that sought to unravel them, to predict every move before it was made. Elias leaned back, eyes glinting with a mixture of thrill and madness. "Let it try. Humans aren't just unpredictable, they're irrational. That's our edge." Mara felt a flicker of doubt, brief and sharp. 10 years of war compressed into this one chamber, one Nexus, one heartbeat. One misstep, and the Larithians could turn time itself against them, trapping humanity in loops of endless conflict. But doubt didn't last long. Humans thrived on the edge. Humans survived where others fell. The Nexus pulsed, tendrils of energy stretching toward them, probing for weaknesses. Mara's mind raced. They weren't just fighting weapons. They were fighting thought itself. A living algorithm that had learned to anticipate human strategies before humans even conceived them. Evasive maneuvers. Mara shouted. "Disrupt patterns. Force them to recalculate." Juno's fingers flew over the console, rerouting power, twisting shields, adjusting trajectory. Pulses of energy flared outward, fracturing the Nexus's tendrils momentarily. The entities recoiled, caught off guard by human improvisation. Elias laughed, low and dangerous. "See, they weren't expecting this. Humans don't follow rules, they invent them." Mara gritted her teeth, eyes scanning for a point of entry. The Nexus's core pulsed with raw intelligence, a heart of strategy that had dictated 10 years of war. It wasn't just a machine, it was a mind, a predator that had never faced this level of audacity. "Target the core," Mara commanded, "not the defenses, not the tendrils. The mind itself." Juno hesitated. That could destabilize everything. Space, time, us included. "Then we do it fast," Mara replied. "Humans don't wait for permission. We act, we dominate. One strike, precise, decisive. That's all we need." The Aegis Vanguard surged forward. Time warped around them. Seconds stretched into decades. Yet Mara's mind calculated, adapting faster than the Nexus could predict. Every countermeasure, every pulse, every probing tendril was met with human ingenuity, audacity and sheer will. The nexus roared, not in sound, but in thought. It lashed out, twisting reality, forcing memories, fears, and possibilities into the cadets' minds. Mara saw her own history flicker, every battle, every loss, every triumph compressed into a single moment. It sought to break them, but humans weren't broken by fear. Humans weren't broken by logic. Humans dominated because they refused to be trapped. Elias shouted, almost laughing through the assault. Now! Hit it! Hit the core! Juno's hands moved with surgical precision, directing the final pulse cannon sequence. Mara's voice cut through the chaos. Aim for its mind. Disrupt its patterns. Force it to face human unpredictability. The pulse hit. Energy erupted, bending light and time around them. The nexus shrieked in awareness, recoiling from the strike it hadn't predicted. Tendrils convulsed, structures collapsing in impossible geometries, energy fracturing into chaotic arcs. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, slowly, the nexus faltered. Its tendrils retracted, pulsing weaker, slower. Its predictive sequences stuttered. It couldn't anticipate humans, their chaos, their audacity, their refusal to be contained. 10 years of war, distilled into a single human decision executed in the heat of 1 hour. Mara's chest heaved, but her mind remained razor-sharp. Hold the course. Don't let it recover. Juno reinforced shields, redirected power, and fired the final calculated sequence. Elias leaned close to Mara, voice low, triumphant. 10 years of war undone in minutes. That's us. The nexus convulsed once, then collapsed inward. Light, energy, thought all folded into themselves. For a moment, the chamber seemed suspended in quiet eternity. Then the Aegis Vanguard was alone in the void, the Lyrithian war machine silenced. Mara allowed herself a breath, slow, steady. Humans had done the impossible. They had ended a decade-long war in less than an hour. But it wasn't just victory, it was proof. Proof of audacity, intelligence, unpredictability, and the spirit of a species that refused to be constrained by circumstance or expectation. Juno's voice cracked with relief. It's over? Elias shook his head, grinning, eyes still wild. Not over. Never over. But humans just wrote a new rule in the universe. Mara looked out the viewport at the void, scarred but empty, and felt something swell inside her. Not pride, not triumph, but something deeper. Understanding. Humanity didn't just survive. Humanity dominated. And when humanity dominated, the impossible bent to their will. She whispered almost to herself. 1 hour. 10 years. Humans always finish what they start. Outside, the stars shimmered indifferent yet beautiful, as if the universe itself paused to acknowledge a species that refused to surrender, refused to be predicted, and refused to be contained. The war was over. Humanity had won, but Mara knew deep down that the universe had just learned a lesson it wouldn't forget. And that lesson was written in human defiance. The Aegis Vanguard drifted in silence, the void around them stretched and still. Mara sank into her chair, fingers resting lightly on the console, but her mind raced faster than ever. 10 years of war had ended in 1 hour, and the galaxy felt different. Is it really over? Juno whispered, voice barely audible. Her hand shook, still adjusting shields, still scanning for threats that no longer existed. Mara didn't answer immediately. She stared at the remnants of the nexus, flickering faintly across the viewport, collapsed, broken, but somehow still humming with a faint echo of thought. Even in destruction, it left a mark, a memory, a reminder that humanity had faced an intelligence that had anticipated every possible move. Elias's grin softened into something rare. Relief. Over for now, he said, voice low, almost reverent. But Mara, did you feel that? The weight of 10 years, the tension, the anticipation? Humans just reshaped history. Juno's gaze lingered on the wreckage. But at what cost? We were inside its mind, felt its thoughts, its patterns. It tried to bend time itself around us. I keep seeing it even now. Mara's jaw tightened. That's the cost of being human. We see, we feel, and we survive. We carry the weight of war in our memories because we adapt, we dominate, and we finish what we start. That's what makes us human. A flicker of light raced across the bridge console. Communication signals. Mara leaned forward. Unknown transmissions scattered across frequencies, chaotic but not aggressive. The Larithians weren't responding with weapons. They were silent, broken, retreating. 10 years of war had ended not with a surrender, but with the collapse of the system that had commanded it. "Look at this," Elias said, pointing to the holographic display. "Every Larithian fleet is recalibrating, retreating. They're silent, processing what just happened." Mara felt a shiver, not of fear but of recognition. Humanity had done something no one, not even the most advanced intelligence, had anticipated. 10 years of conflict undone by audacity, improvisation, and sheer human unpredictability. Juno exhaled, trembling. "I never imagined winning like this. In an hour. We were so small against them. And yet, humans never wait to be big," Mara said softly. "We make ourselves big with our actions, our choices, and our refusal to surrender." The silence in the void was punctuated by the soft hum of the ship's systems. The cadets, still young, still human, still carrying the weight of an entire species' hopes, sat together, absorbing what had just occurred. They had survived an intelligence designed to anticipate every human thought, and they had won. Not with overwhelming firepower alone, but with the one thing the universe had never predicted: humanity itself. Elias broke the silence, voice low and reflective. "Do you think they'll come back?" Mara shook her head slowly. "Perhaps, but we won't be the same. They'll know now. Humans don't just fight. Humans dominate. And we learn faster than they can predict. 1 hour, 10 years of war. Enough to change everything." The cadets sat in quiet reflection, the enormity of their achievement sinking in. Relief, exhaustion, exhilaration. Emotions tangled like threads in a tapestry of raw human experience. They had stared into the mind of a machine intelligence designed to predict their every move, and they had outthought it by being unpredictable. By being human. Juno finally spoke, voice soft but steady. "We're alive, and the war con is over. We actually did it." Mara's lips curved into a small, rare smile. "We didn't just survive. We ended it. We turned chaos into victory. That's humanity." Outside, the stars glittered indifferently, but Mara, Juno, and Elias saw something different, a reflection of their own spirit in the void, a reminder that humanity's essence was not weakness, not predictability, not surrender, but audacity, intelligence, and defiance. And though the hour had ended, and 10 years of war had collapsed into a single human decision, Mara knew one truth above all. The galaxy had just witnessed something irreversible. Humans had proven their place, their dominance, and their indomitable will, and the universe would never forget. The stars were quiet now. The void seemed empty, but Mara knew better. It wasn't silence, it was acknowledgement. The galaxy had learned something about humanity it would never forget. The Aegis Vanguard glided through the remnants of Larithian space. Broken war machines floated in orbit, drifting like dead comets, their once ominous presence reduced to debris. Mara, Juno, and Elias stood together on the bridge, bodies exhausted, minds sharp, hearts still pounding from the intensity of the hour. Elias broke the silence first, voice low, tinged with awe. 10 years of war, ended in 60 minutes. Humans really do play by different rules. Juno exhaled slowly, finally letting herself relax. "It's unreal. Every prediction, every calculation the Larithians made, they never saw us coming. They underestimated what it means to be human." Mara didn't respond immediately. Her gaze was fixed on the fractured horizon, the stars distant but alive, flickering with the memory of battles past. Finally she spoke, her voice calm but commanding. "They didn't just underestimate us. They underestimated humanity's spirit, our ingenuity, our audacity, our refusal to be controlled." Elias chuckled softly. "And now? The rest of the galaxy will know. Humans aren't just survivors. We dominate. We redefine the rules of war and life itself." Juno nodded, still absorbing the enormity of their victory. "It's more than just a win. It's proof that even the most impossible odds can be broken if you refuse to back down." Mara felt a surge of emotion, not pride, not triumph, but understanding. Humans had endured countless wars, countless challenges. They had been underestimated, dismissed, even written off. And yet here they were, small, fragile, mortal beings who had toppled a decade-long conflict in a single hour through courage, intelligence, and unyielding will. "Look at what we've done," Mara whispered. 10 years of suffering, fear, and destruction. And it ends because humans acted when others hesitated, because humans refused to be predictable, because humans never give up. The cadets stood together in silence, the hum of the ship echoing softly, a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. Each thought of the lives lost, the sacrifices made, the sheer terror of facing an intelligence designed to anticipate every human move. But in the face of all that, they had endured. They had triumphed. Outside, distant systems trembled subtly, echoes of the collapse of the Lyrithian nexus spreading across the galaxy. Planets, fleets, and civilizations would remember this hour forever. They would speak of the small band of cadets who turned fate on its head, who ended a decade-long war in mere minutes. Elias grinned, sharp and alive. Do you realize what this means? Humanity just rewrote the rules of conflict. Intelligence, power, prediction. They all bow to audacity. Juno allowed herself a smile, a genuine, warm expression. And the rest of the galaxy will finally see us as humans, not just another species, not just another force, something to respect, maybe even fear. Mara's eyes glimmered with quiet certainty. They'll see us, and they'll remember, not just for what we did, but for who we are. We don't wait for victory. We make it. We don't follow rules. We create them. And we don't surrender. Ever. The ship hummed forward, cutting through the void, carrying the survivors of war, the architects of change, and the spirit of humanity itself. Outside, the stars reflected the fractured remnants of Lyrithian power, but also the brilliance of human determination, shining brighter than any weapon, any fleet, any prediction. Mara felt the weight of the hour lift, replaced with something stronger, a knowledge that humans, small and fragile though they might seem, carried within them an unstoppable force, audacity tempered by intelligence, defiance fused with empathy, and the unyielding will to survive and dominate. 1 hour had ended a 10-year war. One species had changed the course of history. One truth had been etched into the stars. Humans do not bend. Humans do not yield. Humans endure. Humans dominate. Mara exhaled, finally allowing herself a moment of peace. 1 hour, she said softly. 10 years of war. And humanity won. Elias clapped her lightly on the shoulder. And the universe will never forget it. Neither will we. Juno smiled, quiet but firm. We are human. That's enough. That's everything. The Aegis Vanguard sailed onward, carrying its crew and their triumph into the endless night. Humanity had proven itself, not through overwhelming numbers or unrelenting firepower, but through spirit, mind, and heart. The galaxy had learned the ultimate lesson. Never underestimate humans. And somewhere, in the far reaches of space, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer in acknowledgement. Humans had dominated. Humans had survived. Humans had rewritten history, and that would echo forever.